Retire Your Way. I'm Rob Herdig. I'm here with my good friend Ben Heiser. Ben, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Rob. How are you?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it. We've talked about this for a while and finally made it happen.
Well, it's awesome to have you here. And for those of you that don't know Rob, Rob is an expert consultant in the financial space, travels all over and helps the financial advisors all over the country. So we're really privileged to have you here.
Man, it's pretty cool. I'm excited to be here, and I do have a pretty good vantage point when it comes to what's going on and kind of have my finger on the pulse of what's going on with financial advisors and the struggles they're facing. You know, especially with what's going on these days. We're in some pretty trying economic times. There's a lot of down pressures on people right now when it comes to retirement and planning for retirement. And I'm sure you see it every day.
Yeah, man, there's lots of different people that are very scared what's happening out there. We don't want people to be fearful of what's coming. We want them to be proactive to the things that are here so that they feel good about the stuff.
You know, I think, you know, what's happening, it's kind of a surprise to people. We were in a 14-year bull market. The market just kept going up and up and up. And, you know, you start to get this false sense of confidence that you can't lose. And it also created a lot of people that are do-it-yourselfers. The first topic you have written down here today that we're going to talk about is Social Security. And it applies to everybody, but it's kind of tricky to do it yourself. Would you agree with that?
It absolutely is. So, I mean, there's lots of different things about Social Security that we have to take into account. But, you know, some of the big changes that most people don't realize is there's not as many options as we used to have.
It's funny because you have this called the big secret here. Yeah. So I'm intrigued by the name. So I assume you're referring to the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015?
Yeah, the Bipartisan Act of 2015. It changed everything. So if you're, you know, still attending Social Security seminars hoping that there's loopholes for you, there's lots of different changes that have happened. A lot of it has been taken away from us. There's not all these different options anymore. It's really about timing and where to stick that Social Security and when to take it to optimize the wealth that you have.
You know, the funny thing is, you know, people want to point fingers. You know, your party did it, my party did it. It was both parties. And you know when they voted for this Bipartisan Budget Act? It was the middle of the night while people slept because they couldn't face people in the light of day and let them know that they took their filing strategies away. They called them loopholes, but they created the loopholes. Yeah, how are they loopholes when you create them? It's a strange thing. But so we were talking before the show, and we were talking about people that get these mailers for these Social Security only seminars. What would you tell those people?
Well, I would tell them, you know, throw them in the garbage, and because there's really no point for it. I mean, Social Security doesn't give us any tools on when to take Social Security. They tell us how we can take it or what our options are. And so what we need to really focus on is how does Social Security as a baseline from an income perspective fit into our overall wealth picture and how we can optimize the money that we have long term.
It's all about timing now, right? I mean, that's what Ben's saying. It's all about timing. It's not about filing strategies and maximizing your benefit, because you used to be able to do that with file and suspend and filing a restricted application. Now it's all about when you file. So in this age of do-it-yourselfers, right, everybody's an expert. How does somebody know when to file? Because there's so many variables when you go plug in little calculators, right? How would somebody do it on their own know?
Well, here's the thing. You can guess.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're doing. We're guessing, like, when is it going to make sense? And so I find that people have pieces of information and they try to act on that. So for an example, people come to me and say, hey, you know, if I take it at full retirement age, I get more. Well, you get 100% of your benefit. If you take it late at 70, you get 132% of your benefit. But here's the reality. Your break-even point actuarially is all the way out to 82. But really what we're not focusing on is what is the drain on your retirement portfolios that we're taking by waiting to do that, and is that the actual way to optimize your wealth?
Right. Does it make sense to use your funds today to get that bigger benefit later? And the thing that we'd never know is life expectancy, right? That's the big variable. You and I were looking at an example of filing earliest, I think 63 now, filing at FRA and filing at 70, deferring it, and the difference in payment. And the example we looked at, it was over $400,000 by not getting it right between filing early and filing at the latest. So it really is something that people struggle with. Like when they go and fill out these, there's lots of websites, there's lots of resources where you can go plug in your information, but how do you know that you have the right information in there?
Well, and that's the big key. You don't. And so you have these different resources, like you can go to the SSA.gov and they'll give you the choices you have.
Right.
You can go on these websites and they'll give you a whole bunch of different pieces of information, but we're missing things like when we want to retire. We're missing things like, do you have a spouse? Is there an age gap? Is there a Social Security difference? Do you have other assets, right? Does it make more sense to do that? And so we have technology in the financial space that people don't have access to because they're not licensed to do it.
Right, and you just said something that actually makes a good point. You said, do you have other assets? And what we're talking about right here is Social Security maximization. And you cannot maximize a benefit if you don't have other assets. So if you're sitting in the audience saying, hey, I wonder if Bing can help me, find out what the best benefit is, but I haven't saved for retirement and, I just have nothing to maximize, you're probably not a good fit for this, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, the thing is all you have is Social Security. That's all you have.
Right.
We can't optimize anything else that's there. We'd love to help, but ultimately it's not an option.
Yeah, so don't mishear what Ben's saying.
Yeah.
He's saying Social Security maximization only applies to people that have other funds. Otherwise, you probably need to work as long as you can, save as much as you can. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. If Social Security is your only thing, you're going to wait as long as you can to get the biggest benefit so you have the paycheck until, we end up, going to see who we're going to see next.
That's right. And the funny thing, we briefly talked about the resources that are available for people online. They're great, but it's also overwhelming the number of resources that are out there. And somebody could plug in, their figures into a calculator and 4 or 5 times, and they get 4 or 5 different answers. Because if they change one of those variables, it might get them information that could derail their plan and tell them to do something they shouldn't necessarily do. So what would be another way that somebody could find out how to file for Social Security, what the most advantageous way to do it is?
Well, the reality is I think the most advantageous way to look at what you can do for Social Security is, outside of going to work for Social Security and trying to understand all the benefits behind it.
Go read every page of their website.
You got to work with an advisor that understands the difference, the decumulation phase of your retirement, when we're spending, when we're taking money out, and how to optimize that as part of an income plan inside of your overall wealth picture. It's not just Social Security by itself. It's our Social Security, which may cover some of our fixed expenses, but we know that the fixed expenses is just one piece of retirement. Then you have your lifestyle goals and dreams. So it's kind of like your paycheck and the playcheck. And the way we look at that is that's retiring your way. When we can get those things dialed in and guaranteed, we can alleviate the #1 fear in America today, which is running out of toilet paper. No, I'm just kidding. It's running out of money. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that you feel confident like we used to be able to feel. Social Security gives us a baseline. It's a piece of an overall plan, but by itself, it's a product. And just having a product by itself limits your opportunity.
And more than ever, I think we're in a time in life where your margin for error is very, very slim. It's a sheer ledge, and if you fall off, it's hard to get back up, right? It really is. We have all these down pressures. We have this legislative risk with taxes. We have market volatility. We have inflation that's eroding your paycheck. So this is something. If retirement is a puzzle, it's the corner. It's the edges, right? You need to get this piece right so we can fill in the rest. So I think that's a great segue into our commercial break here. I think we're running out of time.
Well,
here.
Absolutely. So, I just met with somebody just the other day, and she was trying to figure this out. She had an expectation for one thing, and we were able to show her the difference and figure out when was the right time. So what we're going to offer is a retirement readiness review with the emphasis on a Social Security, so we can see when you can optimize your Social Security based on your custom tailored needs. And so we'll take a look at your risk and your taxes and the income that you have and the lifestyle goals that you have and the dreams that you want to do, plus your fixed expenses. And we'll figure out ways to alleviate the concerns of running out of money. If you are serious about retirement, you can give us a call at 855-855-7655, and we will be happy to sit down with you and see if we can help you optimize your wealth. You can also click that QR code, and that'll bring you directly to a page where you can fill out a readiness assessment of where you feel you are at in retirement, and then you can schedule an appointment right there online with us.
Hey, make sure you join us after the break here. We're going to be talking about something that's just equally as important, and it's something that's top of mind with everybody right now. We're going to be talking about inflation and how it's eroding people's retirement plans. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Call 855-855-7655 to receive your complimentary retirement readiness review and Social Security maximization report. Get the most from your Social Security payments. Find a strategy that maximizes your Social Security benefit and preserves the assets you've saved for retirement. Social Security seems easy, right? The question is, should you take it now or later? There are numerous ways to file for Social Security. The decisions you make can also affect how much you pay in taxes. You've paid into Social Security for decades. Now, get the most out of your Social Security benefit. Call Ben and his team at 855-855-7655 for your complimentary retirement readiness review and Social Security maximization report. Now you need to build that into a retirement income plan with all your assets. Call Ben and his team now at 855-855-7655 to receive your complimentary retirement readiness review and Social Security maximization report, or use the QR code on the screen to schedule your appointment today.
Welcome back to Retire Your Way. I'm 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏 here with Ben Heiser. Ben, thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited you're here. This has been a long process in the making, but we finally got our schedules to connect.
You probably thought I was full of it, didn't you?
Yeah.
You said, I said we'd do this, and you just kept kicking the can. No, things just didn't work out for us schedule-wise, but they finally did, so I'm glad we're here.
And I don't even think people really realize what an expert you are in this field and what an honor it is to be here with you.
Hey, thanks, man. That makes me feel good. Keep saying nice stuff about me.
You can pay me later, right?
So, as promised, we're talking about inflation here. You have this called the hidden tax.
Yeah.
It's a tax on your assets that you didn't necessarily vote for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, inflation is something that erodes at our purchasing power. It erodes at what we can do. It's a tax that you have no control over, and it just gets changed on us. And so it's like getting the rug pulled out from underneath us, and all of a sudden, our lifestyle, we just can't buy as much. And so we're at 40-year highs from an inflationary perspective today. And it's on the top of a lot of people's mind, but it's something that we've always prepared our customers for, people in our Thrive community. We look at this as part of their plan and always have. And so we don't want you to not have prepared for these things, where then all of a sudden you feel like the paycheck that you have and the paycheck that you have for the lifestyle goals, like your travel and your entertainment and all that stuff, all of a sudden you feel like it's just not going as far, and it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And then you just feel like, man, this isn't what my retirement dream looked like to me. Why is it going, and why is it my dollar's not going as far as it went?
It's funny, I know that you planned for inflation. You factored into how you manage somebody's assets and put the entire plan together. But what I want to ask you, and I know the answer to this because I talk to a lot of people around the country, how many people do you come in that come into your office that are prospects that either watch the show, listen to your radio show, or go to one of your live events, come in and say, yeah, my financial advisor's been really proactive about getting out in front of this inflation thing. They've called me into their office tons of times. We've walked through it. We have a really good plan put together. How many people have done that in your office?
Nobody.
Nobody. And I hear this across the country, and I think a lot of it is either it's out of sight, out of mind. They've already gotten paid on the business, or continue to get paid, and they think that they take that for granted, or they don't have the ability to do anything. They don't have the tools at hand to actually deal with inflation.
Well, part of that's understanding our industry a little bit. And so what happened is we have custodians that hold our money and offer product. Now, then you have advisors that give advice, and then you have money managers that employ strategy. And so if you understand the tiers of what's there, you're not going to be given advice with like your custodian, because that's not what they're legally licensed to do. They're there to make a transaction happen. And so we feel like sometimes the big box companies that our money's held at is important. What's really important is the advice that you're given and the styles that you have to add strategy so that you can be prepared for things like we're in right now, and not be living in a state of fear because you don't know if your money is going to last.
So to give them the benefit of the doubt and not claim that it's incompetency or that they just don't care, let's take into consideration what the 10-year average inflation rate has been, and then the 103-year average. I think the 103-year average is just a little over 3%.
It is.
And then the 10-year average was like 2.4% until these numbers that we're seeing today actually catch up. So if you think about that from an income need, if I need $100,000 today in retirement, at a 3% inflation rate, it takes 25 years for that income need to double. Most people only live an average of 18 years in retirement. Now think about at 2.6%, which was the 10-year average, that's 30 years before your income need doubles. And right now inflation is about 8.6, 8.4. Do you know how long it takes your income need to double at that inflation rate?
Not long, 12 years?
7 years.
7 years.
And would we say the average person lives how many years in retirement?
20.
So it's going to double it's going to double 3 times. So if I need $100,000 a day in 7 years, that's $200,000. In 14 years, that's $400,000. In 21 years, I need $800,000. Has your financial advisor actually put those numbers to the test based on what you have saved and what your spend is, and determine if that money is going to calculate and work out for you? Does anybody do that?
Well, let's look at this too, and I want to stop right here because this is important. And guys, you need to hear this. So what he's talking about is the income need doubling. Maybe look at it a different way too. Your income is cut in half. So every 7 or 8 years, if your income is cut in half, think about all of the things you've worked hard your entire life. What does that do? Now, we're not trying to scare you or prepare you. Whether you need to double your income, that's something we have to prepare for. Are you prepared for it? Or what is it going to look like if you don't prepare for it and your income, whether its efficiency gets cut in half over the next 6 to 8 years, and now you're sitting there going, why can't I go do anything?
Right, and we're talking about just inflation alone, right? By itself, we're not talking about more market downturns, and we're not talking about this legislative risk that's hanging out there. We've just printed trillions of dollars. Somebody has to pay for that eventually. So what if tax rates go up as well? Then you're really in trouble.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important where we start with income in retirement. So we focus on growth as we're accumulating our wealth. We have to focus on income because the paycheck that you need to cover your fixed expenses and the paycheck that you need to cover your lifestyle goals and dreams equals retiring your way. We don't want you to survive, thrive in retirement. To do that, you have to have a plan, and we fill it with the appropriate product to get you to that thing so that you're not living in the uncertainty of, where's my money at? Is it going to last?
You know, what I find funny is, I look at my parents' and grandparents' generation, and, people that retired in the 60s and 70s, and you had to be almost completely unplugged to fail at retirement at that point. You had to be terrible. Everybody was successful at retirement. And when you look at it, it was because they had guaranteed paychecks in the form of pensions. You look at the stock market volume back then, it was minuscule. It was nothing prior to 1978. The Revenue Act of 78 created the 401k, and the volume of the stock market went through the roof. But also, interest rates started to creep down.
They did.
The old way of retirement worked every time, but Wall Street spent billions of dollars getting in your living room, telling you that the old way doesn't work and to keep your money in the market. It's them being interested in their own.
Yeah, why do they do that? Let me see. They get paid a fee.
Right.
So if your money's in the market, you get paid a fee. Well, obviously there's a vested interest in making sure your money stays in the market. Guys, let me ask you a question. If you're listening out there and you're going, you know what, I don't even know if my money's going to last. I have the number one fear. I'm worried about running out of money in retirement. Let me ask you a question. If you could have the certainty of the past, like Rob's talking about, right? That three-legged stool that gives you certainty. You had a fixed guaranteed kind of a pension income that increased over time to help you keep up with inflation and concerns and taxes. You have your Social Security. Add those two things together equals your paycheck and your playcheck. Now you get to go retire your way with confidence, and then the extra money that you have, we can focus on growing. It is possible to have that in the past, but you have to work with somebody that doesn't exclude asset classes because they're limited. So why we are independent in what we do and why Thrive exists in our space is we look at everything. We want to make sure that if your money needs to go in for growth, we're looking at strategies around how to mitigate your risk and maximize that growth. If your money needs to come over here for income, we need to take a look at asset classes that allow you to have guaranteed income over your lifetime and increasing for cost of living and adjustments. And we need to have a bucket of money that's there for emergencies.
So who would you say would need to look at the inflation and how inflation is impacting their plan? Would you say that's for anybody that's on the cusp of retirement or recently retired? Anybody that's worried about outliving their money?
Absolutely. If you're there, you have money saved outside of your home, and you don't just live off of Social Security. Actually, the more wealth that you have, the more inflation impacts your money. And so there are strategies that we can put around this to mitigate the impact of inflation in your world so that you can feel confident stepping into those years. So is that something that's important to you? If you could eliminate the number one fear in America today from your portfolio, when would you want to do that?
Right. Actually, we're going to commercial break. I think you have something for the audience here.
So we have a retirement readiness review that we will do with you. It's a second opinion. You don't get a second opinion from the person that gave you the first. And we will run an inflation report inside of your plan so that we can see how that impacts your wealth and if it's a hazard that's going to impact you in a negative way. Folks, don't delay. Give us a call at 855-855-7655. Don't just survive, thrive in retirement.
Hey, join us after the break. We're going to be talking about the greatest trick ever played. We'll be right back.
Call 855-855-7655 for your retirement readiness review with Inflation Report. Inflation continues to hit all-time highs. Will your investments provide you with income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings? Don't let runaway inflation erode your retirement dreams. Now's the time to act to be certain you have an income strategy that overcomes the effects of inflation. Call Ben and his team at 855-855-7655 for your no-cost retirement readiness review with Inflation Report. You might have the savings you need today to weather this storm, but how will inflation affect your nest eggs 5, 10, 15 years from now? Discover the peace of mind you deserve. Call Ben and his team now at 855-855-7655 for your no-cost retirement readiness review with Inflation Report, or use the QR code to schedule your appointment today.
Welcome back to Retire Your Way. I'm 𝗏𝗏𝗃𝗏 here with Ben Heiser. Ben?
Rob, this is great stuff, man. I'm excited we're here.
Hey, we always talk about important stuff and things that really matter when it comes to retiring and saving and investing. And as promised, we're going to talk here about the greatest trick ever played. I think we're talking about the Revenue Act of '78. We alluded to it a little bit in the last segment. We were talking about inflation. But the Revenue Act of '78, most people don't know what that is.
No, they don't. And so the Revenue Act of '78. So
I'm going to stop you real quick.
Yeah.
Tell them what retirement looked like before the before the Revenue Act of '78. Paint that picture really quickly. We talked about it a little bit last segment.
So let's take a look at this. So back before the Revenue Act of 1978, employers were responsible for saving for retirement. And so when you were tenured at a company, you got a pension. You got your gold watch, you were there for 30 or 40 years, and they give you a paycheck for the rest of your life. Social Security was your paycheck, the extra money that you needed, and then you were able to retire your way with confidence, and you didn't worry about it. Now also at that point in time, Social Security wasn't even taxed. And so the reality is we had a lot more confidence because the pension plus the Social Security gave us more than enough. And then our savings outside of that was just a byproduct, something that we could build for legacy or have designed for growth. And it was a great situation. We called that the three-legged stool. I remember my parents teaching me this stuff when I was growing up. You may remember the same thing. And what do we have today? Well, the Revenue Act of 1978 broke one of the legs of our stool.
Right. The income,
Yes.
the income leg.
The income leg. And so it's left people feeling uncertain. So here's what's happened.
Then left to do it themselves on top of it, right?
Yeah. So are you an expert in Look, I don't do my own dental work.
Right.
Why? Because I didn't go to school for that. I didn't do that. So here's what they did. Corporations, okay, that didn't want to have to save for your money because it was expensive for them and your retirement. Then you had an IRS, right? And then you have custodians, the ones that get to hold your assets and make money off of it. They all got together, right? And they made a baby. And the baby is called the 401k.
Yeah.
And we've been convinced that this 401k was a great idea, that we get to now take control over saving for our retirement. But yet, we don't have any expertise, and then when you have a 401k, nobody's going to give you advice.
All this stuff is terrible, right? It is. You're left to do it alone. You were taken care of before. You didn't have to worry about anything. Had a paycheck coming in. And now, that's not even the greatest trick that we've talked about. There's even a worse part of this that people don't consider, right? And I think a good segue into this conversation is, have you seen the commercial where people are walking around with a number over their head, what they need for retirement? Do you know what the one thing that they haven't done with that number? You know.
I do.
Yeah.
So I like to call this the lump sum illusion.
Yes.
Is what Rob is referring to here. I have $1 million. Okay. But once our silent business partner, right, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, the guy that looks friendly.
Yeah.
He's got the big white beard, the red, white, and blue.
Yeah.
He's smiling, looks like he's your buddy.
Well, there's 3 initials here, right? IRS. What does that stand for? iRob Seniors? Oh, sorry. So yes, here's the thing. What we've done is we've been convinced to save money pre-tax today. Okay? We're not looking at the tax. So the lump sum illusion is gross. Gross doesn't matter. What matters is once you subtract your tax bracket from your wealth, then is what you actually get to keep.
But it gets worse.
It does.
We don't know what that tax rate's going to be down the road. And look at the money we've printed.
Yep.
Something's got to give at some point. When you print money, somebody's got to pay the piper at some point.
We do.
And so what do? They raise tax rates. So the number that you have in your head for what you think you're going to have left after the taxes, if you've ever even considered that, it's going to be worse than what you think. But there's things that you can do today. You know, I think about the trick that they played, and as adults, we just accept it, right? Because we look at taxes in arrears through the rearview mirror. So we just accept what the rules are. But if you went to your kids, and I know you've got a bunch of them, so do I, and said, hey kids, we're going to play a board game, and I'll tell you what the rules are after the game. You know what your kids would say?
Bye.
See you later. Not playing. I'll give you an adult example. If you went to buy a car and the guy at the dealership at the finance department said, just make me a payment. Pay me $1,000 every month, and when you're done paying for the car, I'll come tell you. Would you do that deal?
Sounds like a great deal.
Right. Well, that's what everybody's doing with their qualified accounts. And they act like nobody really understands the repercussions of this or the potential repercussions of this. And there are things you can do today to combat this, right?
Yeah, I mean the legislature. Yeah, you can go back to school, become a CPA or a tax attorney, so that we can understand the thousands and thousands of pages of tax code. I don't know how much fun that sounds. Is that how you dreamed retirement would look like? Going back to understand taxation?
Figure it all out on your own.
But this is the thing. This is the greatest trick ever played is they can change taxes whenever they want. It's the only form of risk that we can't diversify away because we have no control over it. So what do? We're at 90-year tax lows. So back to your point, your paycheck in retirement is not the number that you have gross. When you make $100,000 in income, you don't keep $100,000. It's what hits your bank account that matters. So folks, we got to have your paycheck in place. We got to have your play check in place. That's the stuff that allows you to do your lifestyle goals and dreams so that you can retire your way without compromise. But we have to account for taxes. So it's possible that we need to take a look at doing conversions into like a Roth or a 7702 plan so that you don't continue to pay the longevity of tax because there's 3 layers to tax.
I love what you just said. You said you can take away this legislative risk. It doesn't matter what Congress does if you get out and are proactive about it. But if your financial advisor is not talking to you about this, then shame on them and shame on you for not investigating it, right?
Exactly. And so here's the thing. So we have a team and we have technology that allows us that aids us in this. Some of you need to do some tax conversions. Some of you don't. How do we look at that? We got to plug it in and look at the whole picture so that we can help you have the best optimization of your wealth so that when tax rules change, we're prepared for it.
Hey, that's a great segue into break.
Absolutely. So here's what we're offering today, a retirement readiness review with a tax map. So we can look at the tax implications on your wealth, plus your risk and your fees to make sure that you're confident in retirement. Don't just survive, thrive in retirement.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. We had a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of really important topics when it comes to retirement. Join us next week. Thank you.